What? Welcome, dear friends. We are in our Q&A time, talking about health from the perspective of your needs and feelings or studies or whatever, and also from the perspective of Daoist Chinese medicine and Wudang Tai Chi Kung Fu, or things that are related to it. So that's Taoism and stuff like this. There is one of the people here in the Zoom that is also going on here who has a remark. Claudia, what was your question?
Yeah, we talked about the trust in the body due to exercise or towards exercise.
Oh, yeah. That was. Yeah, we were just going through the questions that people had. That I have the list in my mind about things that people already had asked before. That I definitely need to go to. But for you also, the idea is actually that if you have questions, you just ask them, and you make sure that you put them in the comments below here in the text. Normally, we start always quarter past the whole hour for this, but now because of setting up a multi-stream on YouTube and Facebook at the same time, we do this on on the half hour because it's a little bit easy to set up after the previous class where we do a Neidan Tai Chi Chuan class. Gives me the opportunity to go to the toilet, so to say. So I hope you're going to have a lot of fun. Hope on your participation, or if you look at this video afterwards, that is not a problem. Just put your comments below anyway, and we will find them next time. And we try to be as complete with our own discussion in the meantime as possible. But of course, I look forward to see your comments later on. I didn't make an announcement today, simply for the reason I forgot that I have to do that before. It's a new thing, this multi-stream thing for me. I'm having here a class. There were three major topics that we have here today that we wanted to talk about. And if you like the topic, then also just give it an extra like or something, just say something. You can always join us as a donator on our Patreon, or you can start following classes with us on our SEM card program. And we have live classes several times a week for one fixed price. You can partake on everything. It's very low. And I got a complaint from one of the students that actually my prices are too low. So this is where we are at this moment. We are having these three topics, like we said. We have one question about pain and exercise. We have one question about children and self-cultivation. And we had another one about pain. What was the third one again?
Trust in your body during exercise.
Oh, yeah, trust in your body during exercise. Yes, that's the third one. So it is a little bit of an exercise-oriented session today. So it is very good. Some sessions we will talk mostly about therapeutic things, sometimes more about spiritual things. Every time is different depending on the kind of questions that is coming. I see here one comment on Facebook, a new thing that is not a strange thing. Okay, well, that's maybe true, but for me it's like that. Anyway, there's subtitles here on Facebook. Did you see that, guys?
No.
Yeah, there's subtitles titles there. I didn't know that. That's probably something. See myself subtitles. That's very funny. I'm sorry. I'm really having a lot of fun here because I see this new function, subtitling, is very nice. I have to make sure though that the volume here is off on Facebook because otherwise you get disturbed with that sound. Anyway, let's go into these topics. Otherwise, we waste too much time on all the extras, and that's not the idea. It's already amateurish enough as it is. You see me sit here in my studio where I actually record my classes and where I record my sessions for the online courses. I share this one with my rabbits and my cats. So this is basically our friendship hall, you can say. The rabbits and the cats, they sleep here very often together and they hug together and so on. And they seem to be doing pretty okay. So that's very nice. And there's an airport close by, so every now and then you will be disturbed by the helicopters and by airplanes that are flying over. So that is a little bit of a disadvantage. So if you have any questions, then just let me know. Let's start with pain and exercise. And it is a little bit like the question about pain with exercise and the question of Claudia. What was the question again, Claudia?
How to trust your body during exercise.
Yeah. And how to trust your body. This is a little bit similar to each other because many people, when we grow up with a, what can I say, a handicapped motoric system in the sense that our education, the kind of gymnastics that we get on school, they help us to be good warriors on the battlefield, but they don't really help us to become good humans. And this is a very big problem. As a result of that, um, we do not learn how to deal with our body properly, but we learn to hide basically for the pains or the stiffnesses that happen to our body. And as a result of that, we are learning how to avoid noticing things, or we're trying to hide for the things that we notice. Um, you might have noticed yourself if you are a very agile person or not. For yourself, if you're not a very agile person, the chances that you're going to have pains or that you're going to have problems somewhere in your life as a result of accident or as a result of stiffness or increasing discomfort to your body, um, this is just something that is going to happen then at that moment. When you are born, which is the first thing, and it brings us actually already to the third subject as for self-cultivation and children. Um, but at the moment when you are born, um, you go, what Chinese medicine says, you go from a prenatal state to a postnatal state. Prenatal state means basically you are in a process of becoming, and at the moment when you come in the postnatal state, that means that you are actually manifested in this world as an object, a living object, of course, but an object nonetheless. And at the moment when you are in this world, the first moment that you are here, you start noticing all kind of things um, are going to be different. At the moment when you are in the womb, you are in a water world, right? And when you're in the water world, uh, well, you're cool. Even though you're warm, you're cool. It's a little bit like lying down in the bath. That's why a lot of people they like baths and swimming and so on. But at the moment you come into the world, all of a sudden you have to start relying on your own breath, not on the breath of your mom. And you have to understand that breathing is basically putting yourself to fire, right? We talk about sometimes, like in some books, like there are people who are burning themselves for demonstration, like what happened with the Falun Gong in China. And that is happening also sometimes spontaneous, apparently, with people who are in meditation and they spontaneously burst out into fire. I've heard about these things to happen. I don't know if they're true, probably not. Um, but the fact that when you are breathing, the oxygen that you are breathing is actually what creates fire inside your body. So the first breath that you are putting on is like, you're breathing in the fire of a lighter in your face. And as a result of that lighter face, your body starts hurting, right? So that's the first thing. That is the reason why children cry when they are born, because they're oxygenated, they come in fire. And this fire makes that your whole body actually becomes active and so on and so on. And you build basically your life on the fact that you're in fire all the time. Um, when you do intensive breathing, right, you try to emulate the kind of lifestyle that dinosaurs had. In the dinosaur time, there was more oxygen in the world, so that means that you increase the fire, and as a result of that, you grow bigger and stronger, but you also have more chance for handicaps and problems. So that is a trade-off that you have to go through. This is at the moment when you grow up and you learn to do this kind of things, and there's no plan behind it, then this is what happens. Uh, because that fire is already there, your whole body system is based on the fact that there is a fire and that fire is uncontrolled. So that means that all kinds of things happen, and as a result of that, you can develop all kinds of pains inside your body. And then at the moment when you are exercising, you can do something about these pains. There is a problem though, because at the moment when you have pains, you grow into that pain over time. And at the moment when you are when you're experiencing that pain, that is a subjective sensation. The body only tells you like, okay, there is something that is not right, but it doesn't say like there's not right. It just gives you indicators there is something going on, and the longer something going on, the more painful it gradually becomes. Or more, it first started very often with more stiff, and then all kinds of things happen. Already with children, you can see that they start becoming very stiff very, very quickly because of the stress of being on fire. And then if you do not massage your children or have your children frequently massaged to have all their body parts stretched, then their body becomes very stiff. And as a result, that they harden up, right? And that hardening up of the body also is at the same time an emotional hardening up. And then when they are being uh, raised, also of course they have to be disciplined, and they have to be disciplined. I mean, just doing things in a disciplinary way, not being disciplined like that. But they have to be disciplined, and over time they start building resentments and angry things and desires to run away and so on and so on. The normal life that we all went through one way or the other, which psychologists say like this is the process of learning and gradually detaching yourself from your parents. This is not so not much that is a natural process, it's just the way how things go. It's not necessary per se if the parents would have been educated properly and have understood that this child is continuously on fire. You have to understand that through the growing process, they are in a bigger fire than adults usually. And as a result of that, they are also suffering more, and their body continuously produces all kind of natural opiates to mitigate the pain a little bit. And with some kids, it works a little bit better, and with other kids, a little bit less good. So some kids have more pain than other kids. Also, still very subjective, and they learn already to live with it in a very young stage. At the moment, when you grow up and this continues, or you get accidents and you break something, or you're going at the gym, or you play football or baseball or something like this, you all the time do excessive movements which wear out your body. So as a result, that maybe your bone splinters here and there, or your cartilage splinters, or you break something, or you rip some muscles, or you rip some ligaments. All these kind of things that can go wrong with your body, they create permanent scars, and these permanent scars are always going to be in the way of your body. But this is also why good education is very important, because it helps you to prevent that these kind of things happen. When you go to the gym and you have to do things excessively, like when you go spinning, or you go to the whatever kind of fitness class, or you go work with weights, then every time you try to damage your body a little bit to grow your muscles, or all these kind of things. But these are also creating particular kind of scars. That's why you see why big bodybuilders are also very stiff, because they're basically one big scar that is walking around. And so you have to understand that all these kind of things, and I'm showing you these exaggerations a little bit, to show you where all the pains come from that people have. And these pains, they are going to be noticed when you move. And exercising, of course, is moving, because one thing that good exercise has to do, it has to help you mobilize your whole body, not just stretching. That's what it has to mobilize your whole body. It has to give you grip on your mobility, and it has to make sure that every body part has its maximum movement space, so that your channels are properly open, that your blood vessels are properly open, that your muscles are soft and flexible, and that your joints are properly open, that nothing is pressing against something else, so that you don't develop hernias, or you don't develop arthrosis or something like this. Any of these kind of things you're supposed to keep open in your body, and as a result that you can prevent pain. But once you have these kind of pains, then at that moment, of course, you have another issue, namely that these pains are going to be nagging and nagging and nagging all the time. And as a result of that, you create fear inside your body, or the pain actually creates fear, and your body becomes tight. And then what happens is that you start running away for the pain because it becomes too much. You can run away by taking a paracetamol or aspirin or any kind of other medication that kills your pain. You can run away in alcohol or drugs or anything like that. It doesn't really matter what you do, but it is still, circumstances running away. And as a result of that, you always run, or usually you run in the wrong direction, right? So if this is your normal state of health, then your pain is like a bump on the road, right? And you can't go flat on the road in the right direction. So the bump actually makes it you climb that bump and then roll off in another way. And that is actually you're running away, right? This is you falling off and you try to avoid feeling the pain. As a result of that, you start creating all kind of uh, habits to try not to feel the pain. So this bubble that is there somewhere on the path of your life, um, you try to blind yourself for it. And at the moment when you go exercise, what exercise does, it points out like, look, don't forget about this bubble. This bubble is still there. You have to go on the bubble, and then you have to go on the other side where it is normal. So only when your exercise is successful, and it is not depending on the exercise per se, although when you do the wrong kind of exercise, of course, you can do more damage, like when you do a lot of core building and uh, uh, aerobic kind of exercises and strength building and so on, because these kind of things, they make your body more compact so that you limit the freedom of your body, and you create more tightness so that you have less space for change. So that's a very important part. So you see this, you see Shaolin monks, for instance, they're all pretty uptight in their body. They can do amazing things, but these amazing things, they are not useful for your body. There's also what Buddhism doesn't mind, because Buddhism is about liberation of the mind, not about liberation of the body. Like in Taoism, we want to liberate the body and the mind. Oh, we want to liberate the mind basically by the liberation of the body. And it's a completely different kind of attitudes. When you go look at Western sports, modern sports, they're all military sports. They're all based on team building and on going with your body into a particular kind of excess, so that the risk for your body is very large. And especially when you go do that professionally, you get very well paid for it. But if you go to the gym, you do it voluntarily. And if you do not know how to control yourself and stay calm and non-sweaty and non-committal to your exercises, you're definitely going to have a risk for damage. And not only physical damage, also emotional damage. Because apparently a lot of people who frequent gyms also have latent depression and other psychological issues, sometimes about their appearance and so on, insecurities. But these pains, and at the moment when you address them through your exercise, you go into the right direction, and at that moment you are going to be confronted with the pain, and the pain is going to be felt head on. And you don't want to force yourself through the pain, but you want to learn to work the pain in a particular kind of way. But it means that the pain, to resolve the attempts to resolve the pains through your exercises, also is the kind of pain that is already there, and it's not caused by the exercise, but the exercise makes it clear, and then you gradually have to figure out how to work yourself through it, so that gradually the pain is being dissolved. And you only know if your exercise was successful by realizing that there's no more pain anymore. That is usually on hindsight, right? Because your mind becomes more and more focused. So even though the exercises work for you very well and the range of pain becomes smaller, in your mind and your feelings, your focus is very much onto it, and you create this homunculus feeling, that a large part of your brain is continuously focused on that little bit of pain. And as a result, this little bit of pain takes a lot of space in your attention span. So this is what you gradually have to come to realize, like, okay, you wake up and there's no pain already for weeks, actually. And so it's not something that you notice when the pain shuts off, but you start realizing, like, hey, already for some time I didn't have the pain. And let me also tell you, there is no exercise that is exactly right to resolve your pain. So that means that you also, through trial and error, you have to figure out every day from day to day how that works. So we have in our Daoland program, we have a variety of different programs, but we have, for instance, the Wudang Fitness program that is actually specifically based on that. Also, the play yoga that we play every Monday. These are a series of exercises with a lot of variability, so that you continuously can adapt your program towards resolving issues like that by working on your flexibility and your agility and stuff like this. These are important things because at the moment when you do not have that variability and you only form like a particular pre-structured program completely organized by somebody else, then for pain that is not a very viable solution. If you want to do something else, like you want to revitalize your body, then for instance, bamboo formula qigong, which is like structured every day that you practice it is the same exercise in exactly the same order, then you want to achieve a particular kind of effect that is relative to that. So for pain, it will be much less effective, but it will be more effective for revitalization. While the Wudang Fitness is a qigong that is helping you to find your mobility back from when you are still in the womb, right? But the reality is that at the moment when you are practicing like that, you're not practicing, maybe you are practicing. When you do not immediately succeed, then you might very well have build up resentment against your pain, against your body, against your environment, all the things that you have to do and so on. So people become insecure and they start elbowing themselves out of the stress that is actually the result of the frustrations about that whole process. At the moment, when you are in that situation, you automatically see your failures and you see very few successes or very slow successes. And as a result of that, you start feeling more insecure about your body, and you feel insecure about maybe on an emotional level or mental level, on all kind of different things as a result of that, because you think there's something wrong with you. And of course, there is something wrong with you because you have pains now, or you have a disease, or you're aging, or anything else that can be going on with you. Um, but you have noticed already, so you're working on it, right? So at the moment when that happens, the only thing that you can do is you can take security from the fact that you are trying to figure it out. And the longer a problem has been lasting in your body, the more complicated it has become. Very often when I do treatment for people, and people have already long-standing problems, not that they are chronic problems, but because problems get layered and layered and they add complexity. I very often call them magic candy problems, because every time when you suck on the candy, it gets a different kind of color. Every time when you work on a client, the next problem that comes out is another problem. And so some people they have like one problem their whole life, and some problems have this, people have all these layers of problems that are intertwined, and it makes it very difficult sometimes to resolve them. And there's all kind of theories in Chinese medicine about what is the cause, if there's wind or damp or heat or cold or something like this. And all these kind of things they might uh, play a role in this. Uh, but that's a for another time to talk about these kind of things. And so the insecurity is the result of the fact that already for a long time you see that you are basically handicapped when you have a particular kind of problem and you don't know exactly what to do to resolve. And the truth is, nobody can tell you, right? Nobody can really tell you. You can only keep on exercising, keep on developing yourself until eventually you got it resolved. Me personally, I was sick as a child very much, and I've been working through all kind of problems a long time. I'm very glad that I did, you know. So because I did that, I understand the theory of Chinese medicine much better than somebody who just learned it from a book. Because from a book you don't learn medicine; you only learn the formulas, right? You learn like, oh, when there's this problem, there's you solve it like that, you solve it like that. But it doesn't mean that you necessarily understand what it is. You need to have a training program, a learning program through your body and through your mind and through your emotion and so on to really learn what all these kind of things mean, and then also then what are the options. So having pain, having stiffness is also at the same time a gift, because you are working through these problems very gradually, and because of resolving it and resolving it and resolving it, you start noticing more and more about yourself, not just by doing the exercise, but you have to have also a theoretical framework for that. And because nobody can solve a problem without a theoretical framework. And that theoretical framework basically means that you have to become a scientist about yourself. So when you have pain, when you have insecurities and stuff like this, you study yourself, you have to have a theoretical framework, and then you have to work yourself through it. I know that from Chinese medicine perspective, from the pre-modern perspective, not a modern perspective, because that's a completely different kind of story. But from the pre-modern perspective, the whole idea is that self-experience is the core of all knowledge. But the self-experience in itself, has to have a theoretical framework through which you can develop particular kind of patterns which can lead to a solution. So there you go. So there's two questions answered in one time. That's the insecurity part, and there is the pain part. I think that is sufficient, right? Like this. Did I answer it a little bit like that? Okay. Rami just left because he had to give a class. So I cannot know if he was satisfied with it, but you can see that pain is a very important part. At the moment when you exercise, then therefore pain is a sign of the fact that you are busy in the right field. And at the moment when you are experiencing this pain, that means that at that moment you are trying to address it. It's a logical consequence of the fact that you're exercising. So the pain is a logical consequence. When you force yourself, you also have a pain, but this is where destructive pain. And then you know like something's going wrong. That means usually that you have been forcing yourself. So it is very important to understand that you have to always exercise in the area close to the pain, but not in the pain. Yes, because you have to create a habit of trying to do things different. You're basically like water flowing around a rock. You're very gradually grinding away the pain over time. This is why repetitive exercises, repetitive exercising, and so on, everyday training is a very important tool to help you resolve pain. You can ask the acupuncturist, or you can ask the physician to give you medication or needles to deal with the pain, but this is always only temporary, yeah, because the problem is already there. So the problem can be hidden for a while, but cannot be resolved by an external therapist. An external therapist can only do so much. So it means also at the moment when you go for a therapeutic solution, and you have to take into consideration that basically half of the solution has to come from you, and that in the process of trying to resolve things, you have to make sure that your therapist is doing a lot of good things for you by giving you a proper training. You're always welcome, of course, to contact me if you need anything. Uh, there's also local teachers, maybe, or instructors in your area. So just ask for that so they can also work. We have in several countries, we have instructors right now at work. So let's see if we can hook you up with somebody if you have any issues. Now we go to the third subject that we had for today. It is about children and things. And of course, everybody hates children. We all hate children. That's a joke, by the way. Um, Everybody by nature, we all love children and we take care of them. And you have to be really twisted in your mind to not like children. This is just not just a judgment, but it's biologically hardwired. But if you see children, um, you just feel feelings for them. A lot of pets that are already for generations with people, they develop this kind of big eyes and fluffy faces and stuff like this to to imitate your children or to imitate children, like how we see children usually, so that we feel endeared by them and everything they do is cute. Um, I happen to have rabbits, which are very fluffy, and I really enjoy their presence very much. But they are destructive. They are terrible animals. They learn to poop on one place. So, but that is something that you really have to teach them. Otherwise, they won't. They will just leave their poop everywhere until they find a place where they feel comfortable to poop. And it could just be in your bed, right? If you leave them like that. Where are they? Oh, they're just now here. They're watching me sleeping. So I'm pointing behind me, but they're actually down here. But they're destructive, and anything that they can put their teeth in or their nails in or anything like this, they will destroy because that is just their habit to try to dig themselves into all kinds of stuff. And that is nice for them, but their lifestyle is not really appropriate to the lifestyle that people have, where we try to keep things a little bit ordered. They have a completely different kind of sense of reality in life. Nonetheless, they're very emotional animals, and they are very loving and kind and stuff like this at the same time. Um, um, but they look like so vulnerable and so cute, and you think all the time like, oh wow, if a spider would sit on your window doing the same things, then you usually not say like, oh how cute. But I'm trying to teach my children to enjoy insects just in the same way like they enjoy their rabbit, um, and that is hard. The thing is with children create asymmetry in your life. This is actually the point that we wanted to go through this. And this is the reason why people can be very aggressive or angry about children, other people's children or their own children. And they can feel very unhappy or imprisoned by their children. The fact is that most people are not prepared for children. They have never learned to be a parent. They never learned to deal with children in their life. So as a result, that they don't know how to address children. They don't know how to guide children, to give children their freedom, and also make sure that they have the limitations. So as a result, that they just give and give and give. They think that giving them love and freedom, that is all that children need. But children are, like Mencius said it in China, children are born with a good heart. But if you just leave them free, they will take everything they can get and they become destructive and they become like demons. Remember the story about the rabbits? It's exactly the same story. It's the same story about children, about rabbits, pets, and so on and so on. It is this wildness and this freedom that people have that in some cases works out really great, but in many cases turns us into gradually into monsters that help us not develop properly in emotional level, so that we can become civilized human beings. Um, Being interested in Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, and so on, one of the main hot topics in all these kind of ways of living is that they emphasize the fact that it is your personal responsibility from a particular kind of age to become an adult civil person and to be protector of the weak and the children and so on and so on, right? So that is a very difficult thing. You do not protect children by being nice to them and make sure that nobody can beat them up, but you protect children by guarding them to teach them things that they can actually really use in daily life. And that doesn't mean that you have to teach them how to gamble or something like this, or that you teach them how to shoot at people, because these kind of things, of course, are not normal. When you have children, there should be no guns in the house, no dangerous knives or anything like that, because you don't want to bring toys that are dangerous in children's house. Um, you see a lot of children walk on the street with water guns or all kind of things. They're basically being trained to become military personnel to go to a war somewhere by playing such kind of games. And there's more in the world than just violent games or imitating violent games. So this is part of your education as a parent. Because you have that plan, you also know where you have to retreat, right? And not be engaged with the children, but you have to keep your distance. And at the moment when you stop keeping your distance from the children, you can engage them, you start treating them as if they are your equal. And children are never your equal. They are vulnerable little creatures that need to be properly educated. They have to be indoctrinated, you can say, from a particular kind of perspective, because you have to teach them values. They don't have by nature values, they only have their goodness, but they don't know how to manifest that. So you have to teach them how to manifest that goodness. It is also a lesson for you as a parent about your own goodness, about your own limitations, about where you are at the same time um, maybe being a good person, you're a loving parent and so on, but maybe also you're selfish sometimes, or maybe you are uh, inconsequential in your actions. You make a rule for the child, but then you break it for yourself. And this is not possible. Children see that. And that lack of logic confuses them. And that confusion actually makes them also unpredictable, because that means that you create a boundary for them and then you break that boundary from your side. So that boundary is not a real boundary, right? So that means that the rules that you make for your children, you have to live by them yourself also. Otherwise, they just don't work. When you are exercising, you're cultivating yourself through your exercise, you need time. And your children, they will try to consume all your time if you let them. So it means that your children have to learn to to see where they can interrupt you, where they cannot interrupt you, with what kind of things. That is very often it's the most difficult thing. That is also why people become tired. Like I said before, children are an asymmetrical factor in your life. They are unpredictable, and they are continuously testing their space because they don't know what to do. The children never have any real knowledge about anything. And they might appear wise sometimes beyond their years, but they're just testing, and they're also trying to test uh, what it means if they copy what somebody else said, right? So they don't really have innate wisdom. This is something that is sometimes assumed, that children have innate wisdom. They have their own kind of logic, and that kind of logic can sometimes be very much to the point, but that doesn't mean that they have any knowledge or any wisdom in itself. It is something that is gradually growing over time, and they are reformulating themselves all the time. Like we as an adult, we also have to continuously reformulate ourselves. In Confucianism, they say you're only a gentleman when you are able to admit your mistakes and change, right? And it's for the lady exactly the same. So gentleman, MV, you can say, it's modern time, or MV or mixed, whatever kind of gender you are at this moment. And you have to be also very widely minded with that, because at the moment when you are making mistakes, these mistakes, if you hold on to them, you try to defend yourself as such that these mistakes are actually good things. And at that moment, you only make the problems from the mistakes larger. That's a wrong example towards your kids. It's a wrong example to anybody, basically, because if you become a bully as a result of the fact that you try to hold on to your mistakes, and at that moment, you are hurting your environment and you can't even admit that you are doing that. Sometimes in our work, I come across people who live that kind of lifestyle and they are filled with aggression and frustration and so on. And it's very difficult to deal with these kind of things for yourself, but also for other people if you have these kind of things. Taoism tries to teach people to be kind and friendly in your actions so that eventually your heart also becomes kind and friendly. It's a very slow process. And there's always going to be people who are going to be annoying to you, whatever kind of things that can happen. But the thing is that you have to learn to be self-critical, and that self-critical attitude and the fact that you recognize that you are learning uh, also makes you recognize that children are learning. in modern spirituality, they very often talk about all these kind of energy things and all kind of lotuses that open up in their third eye or whatever kind of things. That is actually the process of maturing from being a small child towards an adult child. And the last lotus that opens is in your head, because it takes forever almost to develop even a seed of wisdom, right? So at the moment when you are born, you gradually go through all kinds of stages, and these stages, these chakras, these are the different stages of life that you go through. And these different stages of life that you go through, they end up actually on a high note or on a high part or an old part of your life. When you never really learn, you might actually never really get there, right? So then you are an adult, you're maybe 60, 70, 80, but you haven't developed one grain of wisdom yet. So you're still only a child, even though you have children, whatever kind of things, maybe already grandparents or something like this. Yes, but you haven't done that. So that you cannot recognize it in your children too. Your children have a need to learn, they have to need to become civil beings to prevent that they become damaging to their environments, like the rabbits that I talked about. And that's the difficult part. That's the asymmetrical part, because children point out that you are asymmetrical too, right? And we didn't have parents usually that took care of these kind of things, but these are important parts. So if you have more questions about this, don't hesitate to pick it up. I can do family counseling for you about these kind of things if you want, because every situation is also individually different. We can do even I Ching counseling on that if you like to. If you want to learn to do that by yourself, then sign up for the I Ching course. It will be even maybe better. And then you learn to do I Ching counseling on yourself for yourself. That is also possible. But the main thing is that you have to get a good overview, one way or the other, of how you have to change in your situation to make sure that the asymmetry of your children and your own asymmetry do not bump into each other and become a conflict. It is the same in relationships. In relationships also, you can have develop that kind of asymmetry because you do not recognize where you have to change. In Taoism, they say in all situations of learning, you have to learn how to yield, how to pull back, because going in the attack always leads to a counter effect that you probably didn't want, right? So it's with children the same. Once you start punishing children, you get the opposite effect, right? Punishing never really works. They start loathing you and disliking. That doesn't really work. So you have to learn how to canalize kids towards the outcome that you want. And it's difficult to remember that as a parent, right? Especially when you're exercising, you're meditating, or anything else that you're doing. Children interrupt you. You have to learn to hold on to the effects of your exercise to make sure that you remain calm so they can respect you. That's the main thing. All right, very good. I think that is it for today, right? It's basically it. How long are we talking? Oh, 45 minutes. Not bad. Almost 45 minutes. Anybody else, any questions or remarks at this point? No? Were there any questions, remarks in the videos for the rest? I didn't see them. Anyway, then I will see them later.
Well,
what?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Sometimes, especially when I'm in the car, my eyes just close.
Yeah.
Like I just go to sleep.
Yeah. That's not smart.
Is that just boredom? I don't know.
That is actually, well, the thing is, we talked about oxygenation. You get a lot of oxygenation. At the moment when your oxygenation becomes too little, and the car is a stuffy place, and you get to deal with the air-conditioned air and stuff like this is very bad for your health in general. So as a result of that, your mind starts numbing off a little bit. Also, the rhythm of driving. This is, by the way, why automated driving is great as an invention, because you don't have to think anymore. You can just fall asleep and the car will bring you where you have to be, right? So this is going to be great. The problem will be resolved. You have to understand that sitting in a car is a little bit like sitting in a tin can, right? Basically, like you're a herring in a tin can or a bean in a glass jar or something like this, right? There's no real ventilation. There might be air coming in, but it goes through your engine or anything like that. So it's not really the most healthy situation. And this is the reason why you gradually fall asleep. Your mind basically starts retreating from your body. You're not moving, right? So your blood eventually is just retreating to your liver and your diaphragm. And as a result, that you start getting into this dream state, even when you're driving. right? Especially when you're already tired. Your body already wants to go to sleep, especially when it's dark or something like this. So your body already has all the signals like, oh, it's sleeping time. I'm sitting doing nothing, I'm just hanging around, and it becomes difficult to stay awake. So then people do use, I do also use all kind of tricks like loud music or eating something, but it only helps to a degree. Just taking a break and then walk around a little bit, get some fresh air, maybe sleep for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then go further. That usually does the trick.
Open the window.
Open the window works for a while, but you can also catch a cold when you do that. Depends on the climate where you are. The wind usually is very tricky with that. Also, like some windows in your car, when you open them, you get this like the boom, 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 boom sound in your car, which really can harass your sense of orientation, so that you cannot focus on the road also. So you have to be always very careful with opening a window in the car. When you drive very slow, that is fine. When you drive fast, like on the highway, that's usually not advisable. Also because you use a lot more gasoline, and cars are already bad enough for the environment. Even if you're using an electric car, it's still going to be bad for the environment, one way or the other, right? The best thing is just to walk to wherever you want to go to. So if you want to go to New York and you come from California, just take your time.
I've got a lot of Vista Cross.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it. It's look great. Yeah, nice environment.
It's nice.
Nice environment.
Yeah,
definitely.
Everything's far.
But walking, of course, is much better because your body can adapt to the environment and it's much more fun. But yeah, in the past, people didn't get very far. That's why we spread out over the world over many thousands of years. And nowadays, you can go anywhere in a short time, but it's not the most healthy way of traveling. I like traveling somewhere very fast. Also, I'm very patient with the slow traveling. But it is because when you go slow traveling, your destination, is probably not achievable within a relatively short time. So it means you should let go of everything in your life to get there at a certain point anyway. Maybe not in time. Yes?
Yeah.
But that has its own meaningfulness, of course. We just have to become homeless and you start walking on the street all the time. You're always on the way to somewhere. Yeah? That's a joke, right? You shouldn't become homeless if you don't have to. Yes. Security is also an important thing in life. So I'm going to finish the stream. There's going to be some more talking probably here in the Zoom. If you become a Downlander with us, then you're welcome to also participate in the Zoom anytime. So even if you sign up for only a few euros or dollars to support the program, then great. Go look at our Patreon, Dowland Undercast Healthcare. And otherwise, here, write something underneath the video, and I will find you. Take good care. Enjoy the weekend.